Now today, we're going to work on composition of functions. How are we going to combine functions using the operations of adding, subtracting, dividing, and multiplication? Now, let's look at an example. Now, when we talk about adding two functions, we'll have a f of x function and a g of x function. We're going to make a new function. So it's still going to have an x, it's still going to have a constant number there. We will take our f of x function, which we see labeled here, so let's write down our f of x. Our f of x says that it's 3x plus 2. It tells us that we need to add the two functions together, so let's put an addition sign there. And then we need g of x, which is 5x minus 1. All we need to do now is simplify. Now to simplify this, we combine like terms. So we're going to take our x's and we're going to get 8x. We're going to take our constants and we're going to get plus 1. So f of x plus g of x is going to equal 8x plus 1. Now, what if we want to add together a polynomial and a linear function? F of x would be our polynomial. G of x is our linear. So if we want to add these two functions together, well, let's look and see what the f of x function is, the g of x function, and put our plus sign in the middle. So f of x would be x squared minus 6x plus 21. G of x would be 9x plus 5. Again, we combine like terms. Our x squares, there's no other, so we just have x squared. Well, our x is negative 6x, and 9x gives us a positive 3x. 21 and 5 gives us 26. So our f of x plus g of x will give us a new function of x squared plus 3x plus 26. Now, if you see the little smiley face, it says use parentheses. We want to be careful here because of the minus sign. This minus sign is going to make us where we definitely need to put this g of x function into a parentheses when we write it down as 7x plus 1. Putting that minus sign in front of it and writing down the f of x function, which is 4x plus 3. Now, we've got to take this minus sign and distribute it through the parentheses. So that now gives us negative 7x minus 1, 4x plus 3 for f of x still. And again, we combine our like terms. So when we do that, a 4x and a negative 7x will give us a negative 3x. A 3 minus 1 is a 2. We've got to make sure that we distribute that negative sign or this minus sign through each term. If we don't, the mistake that is made too often, okay, if we make a mistake, a lot of times we'll write 4x plus 3 minus 7x plus 1. The mistake here is the fact that this is still a positive 1. We need to subtract everything in that function, so that that minus sign should have gone distributed. It should be 7x minus 1. And that's where we're going to make our mistake. So make sure that you put those parentheses so that when you distribute that minus sign, it goes to both terms. Now, when we look at it, let's look at subtracting a linear from a polynomial. I'm going to put my minus sign. I'm going to make my parentheses. I'm going to write down my g of x function. So it says that needs to be the one after the minus sign, as x squared minus 8x plus 5. And the f of x function, we need to write it down, so we get negative 3x plus 17. I need to distribute the minus sign through, so I'm going to get negative x squared plus 8x minus 5, negative 3x plus 17 still for f of x. Combining my like terms, I have only the negative x squared, negative 3x, and 8x, which gives me a positive 5x. A 17 minus 5 gives me a positive 12. So here my f of x minus g of x is going to equal my new function of negative x squared plus 5x plus 12. Now, what happens with multiplication? Well, make your parentheses and distribute as the face is telling you there. So, what we're going to do is put our multiplication sign in between, make our parentheses, write down our f of x function. Our f of x is going to be 2x plus 5. Our g of x, write it down, is going to be x plus 7. A lot of times we don't write our parentheses with the multiplication sign in between. We see it as 2x plus 5 times x plus 7. Now remember, when you have problems like this, we've got to either FOIL or distribute. Now when we work this out, I'm going to distribute the 2x times x, which will give me 2x squared, the 2x times 7, which gives me 14x. Then I'm going to distribute the 5, which is going to give me positive 5x, and 5 times 7, which is 35. Again, combining like terms, I'm going to get 2x squared plus 19x plus 35. And that is going to give me f of x times g of x is going to give me my function 2x squared plus 19x plus 35. All right, going on and distributing out a binomial to a trinomial. So here we would have x minus 4, because I have f of x times g of x. My g of x function is x squared plus 2x minus 5. Here I need to distribute these, so when I take my x through each term, I'm going to get x cubed plus 2x squared minus 5x. I take negative 4 times x squared, get negative 4x squared. Negative 4 times 2 gives me negative 8x. And negative 4 times 5 gives me a positive 20. Again, I'm going to go through and combine like terms. I only have 1x cubed, so I'll just have x cubed. Take care of my x squares. I have 2x squared and a negative 4x squared. That will give me negative 2x squared. A negative 5 and a negative 8x will give me negative 13x, and then my plus 20. All right, now let's look at a problem, again, where we need to multiply our function. So if we take f of x times g of x, we need to take our f of x function, so that's 3x squared, put parentheses around it, don't forget about our parentheses, and we need to take our g of x function, put it in parentheses, and we have x plus 5 and x plus 3. So when we do this, remember, when we multiply our functions we need to distribute, we also have to take our numerators and multiply our numerators together, and our denominators and multiply our denominators together. So we need to change our 3x squared into a fraction. A lot of times this helps us to put it over 1 to remind us that 3x squared is in the numerator. So a lot of times that can help us to write it as 3x squared over 1 times x plus 5, helps if we write that in parentheses, over x plus 3, also putting it in parentheses. Multiplying straight across will give us 3x squared times x plus 5 all over x plus 3. Now, the thing we want to look at here is, will anything cancel out top and bottom? And the answer is no. So if we want to take it one step further, we could distribute out that 3x squared, and that will give us 3x cubed plus 15x squared all over x plus 3. And that would be our final answer. Looking at a problem where we need to divide. Now, if we look up in their top corner where that dog's going, oh my gosh, I can't remember what to do. Remember, copy, change, flip, then the same thing as our multiplication. So, it says f first, so we need to write down our f, which is 2x plus 1. I like to keep things in parentheses. Divide by our g, which our g function says that it's 3x minus 5. I like to keep everything in parentheses. It keeps our functions in groups. Now, we have to follow what it says here of our copy, change, flip. What I mean by change is change goes from division to multiplication. So we need to copy the 2x plus 1, and we need to flip. Now what I mean by flip is we take our 3x minus 5, and we have to take it to this opposite location, which that used to be over 1. So now that's going to go down to the denominator. So 3x minus 5 is going to be in the denominator, and 1 is going to be in the numerator. Sometimes it helps if we write a 1, so we have a fraction and a fraction. And then remember, multiplication is straight across. So we'll have 2x plus 1, and 1 times 3x minus 5 is just 3x minus 5. And that'll be our final answer. Remember, this is still in a group, top and bottom. Our parentheses aren't the exact same, so nothing's going to simplify, nothing will cancel out. Now, if we look at another problem going through our division, what happens if we have f of x and g of x both being fractions? Not a problem. Write down our f, 3x plus 4, x minus 7. Write down our g, which is x minus 1 over x. Our operation between the two is division. Remember again, it says copy, change, flip. So we'll copy our first fraction. All right, so that would be f of x that we copy. We change from division to multiplication. When we change that, that means we have to flip our second fraction. So it'll be x over x minus 1. One thing I like to do is go through and add in parentheses for each term in the numerator and denominator. Now remember, we multiply straight across. So we're going to have 3x plus 4 times x divided by x minus 7 times x minus 1. None of those parentheses are the same, so nothing's going to cancel out. We could go one step further and distribute everything out, and we would get 3x squared plus 4x all over x squared minus 8x plus 7. Great job going through all these problems. I hope you feel a lot better with our adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing of our functions.